Much as I enjoyed that, it really has not given me the fulfillment that this does. There's something about this that it's like it lights the brain sparks, as far as the creativity of it, the way it develops and evolves. I really enjoy that process. And that's the last thing that I thought it would be. I actually had a small amount of time, I guess you would say, if you compare it to the 33 years that I've been with the Juice Plus Company. Back in 1980, would have been about 1984. Some of you may not have been born then, I don't know, but 1984, my brother came across the Herbalife Company. And I'd never heard of this type of profession at all. Only thing I heard was, people don't do well at that. They're probably the only person in the world that was never approached by an Amway distributor. I never knew anybody who did anything like this. And so he needed help. And again, I kind of fit that in with the teaching. And it was very part-time, and it was kind of like I did it on a lark, you might say, in that he needed the help. And I thought, well, let me just see. Well, the company, interestingly enough, the Herbalife Company at that time had some of the best training that probably ever happened in this profession. Larry Thompson, who was there, he was really a co-owner of that company. He and Mark Hughes both did an amazing job at training their fields. And so there was a joy and an energy to it of, people helping people. I love that whole idea. Unfortunately, that company took a big hit about 1987, and everybody that had worked up, and even though I was part-time, I had a good, income coming from that as well. I didn't have to live on it, but it was really nice. And it kind of fit in, as far as the socializing with people throughout South Louisiana, which is where I was from. But when it went under in the U.S., so to speak, because they lasted and they evolved through foreign markets, they kind of came back over the years, but it went down like a rock. I mean, everybody's checks went to nothing almost immediately. At the same time, my life kind of came apart. Our whole, and many of you have heard me tell that story, our whole foundation of income in Louisiana at the time was the petroleum, oil, and gas business. My husband, who was very prominent in that particular field, he was senior vice president for one of the major oil companies in the world. And so we had a very comfortable life, what looked like the perfect life from the outside, probably. And that whole situation became very bad for people. Everybody lost their jobs. There were no jobs anymore. People, they began to lose homes or whatever they had, and many marriages, and mine came apart. And so all of a sudden, and at this point, both my parents were gone, so it wasn't like I could take my two children who were small. And when I say small, they were, they were, I think, somewhere around 7th grade and 5th. It was 5th and 8th grade, I believe, or 5th and 7th grade. And, but yet that was too young for them not to have a mom at home doing something. And that teacher's salary wasn't going to do it. And there was nobody but me. There was no fallback. And so all of a sudden, I guess without me realizing it, that Herbalife experience had been one that really helped lay the foundation. And I think that's what happens in life to all of us is, as we grow through and evolve as human beings, we're always somehow preparing for the next step, whether we know it or not. And a young man by the name of Jeff Roberti came along, and I was never going to have anything to do. I've been very disappointed because I really enjoyed the Herbalife experience, and I'd been very disappointed when that came apart. And I, like so many people, thought, never again. Not going to make that mistake. And yet times were quite desperate for me at that point and very frightening. And so, when here shows up Jeff Roberti, who is 23 and looks like one of my children, because he was just a kid. And I thought, what could he possibly know about all this difficulty that we're having here, that I'm having personally on top of it, and how terrified I was financially. And so I guess I thought, well, I'll just give it a go, because I needed to have that something extra to try to keep us above struggle. And I never thought about this being, a huge business, or, my business with Herbalife was healthy, but it was certainly not huge. And so I didn't anticipate that. I was just looking for some sort of edge because I was terrified. And what happened, and I've said that before, I just fell in love with the whole thing. The Juice Plus company, if you look at the comparison, and I did at least have that historical reference of having that comparison of, a company like Herbalife, where the distributors really didn't mean much. The company, even though they had phenomenal training there, they really were not personal with their distributors. They weren't, if people came and went, didn't matter. There was not that heart or that community that we have with the Juice Plus company. And I just fell in love with Jay Martin. I fell in love with the products. I fell in love with the everything that it stood for. My values lined up with the Juice Plus values. At the time, we hadn't even come across Juice Plus yet in 1988, but just the values that the company had, where people were concerned. And after that first year, I realized that the skills that I had, I could employ really well here, and that I would really be able to create a career. And I loved it. I loved the teaching aspect of it. It is a teaching profession. And so I decided this would be my full-time profession, and, it became that. And I think that is the biggest surprise to me, but at the same time, it's an evolution of something that probably was destined to happen, because, if I look back on that Herbalife experience, it was probably just prep time. And it really did. It really was the answer, and his answer. And it doesn't mean that I haven't had to be very consistent and work hard at it. There was a lot of fear in the beginning. It didn't just become magically successful instantly. There were a lot of big bumps in the road. I mean, boulders maybe would be the better way to describe it. And yet it has survived, and not only survived, but thrived. And I really believe that is because of the whole philosophy and what Jay Martin stands for and what his company stands for. So, Maura, was that the backstory you were looking for? I don't know.
Perfect backstory I was looking for. You have been interviewed by a lot of pretty famous people in the industry for being a top producer. You are a $1 million producer, multi-million-dollar producer in the Juice Plus company. Certainly one of the most successful. I think you're at the top of all female producers in this company, but also in the industry. What was one of your more thrilling moments? I know I'm throwing you a side ball on.
Oh, that is a side bomb. Okay. Thrilling moments. It's interesting. The first thing, that comes to mind, and you would naturally say, is that something like the Founders Award being looked at as someone who was instrumental in helping this grow up. Because, Herbalife, when we went from Herbalife and it lost its, everything went down the tubes. The Juice Plus company was NSA at the time, and it was suffering. They didn't have anyone who really understood, I guess, how this profession really could grow. And timing had a lot to do with it, I'm sure. But it was a huge honor to be looked at as one of the people that helped to not only lift that, but grow the company. So that felt good. But really, I think the thrilling moments are, when I see people do well. If some, I'm asked every once in a while, and many times by people who are not in our business, this has been successful. So why do you still pursue it with the passion and the daily activity, which, the check's going to pretty much show up at this point. But why? And because for me, it's one of the things I kind of said in the beginning. I love the creativity. I love the brain sparks, but I especially love when I'm talking to a new person or someone's growing up in my business, or, that I see that light come on behind their eyes, when they realize that, yeah, this product might be the answer. This may be the answer, or this business may be the answer. And I love the feeling that comes from that one little spark when someone says, this could be it for me, because that, that's the fire. That's the beginning of the fire. And that's the biggest thrill for me, and that can happen over and over and over. And so as I go through this, that's one reason to keep doing it over and over and over. I like the rush, I guess you would say, of somebody really becoming excited and seeing potential for their life that they didn't see before in one area or both, whether it's health or future security or both. That's to me is the big thrill. It's the big thrill when, and I think the last 2 or 3 Thursday nights, we have story time on Thursday nights, and some of you have participated in that, and we really appreciate it. But still to this day, I mean, I can hear a story that I haven't heard before, and it brings me practically to tears. And, the last few times, and even if I think about the story, Jason Fowler, I'm sorry, talking about, his struggle as far as his life and just the Juice Plus involvement. To be part of that is, to me, just the exciting thing as far as my life is concerned, is to be part of other people's success that didn't know that success was waiting for them or around the corner, or that the potential was there. So that's best the way I can tell it more, I think.
Perfect. So one of the things that, you know how much I love and admire you. You're my mentor. You're one of my dear friends.
Very sweet, and I appreciate that.
I learn from you the way the way you teach, the way you educate, the way you mentor. It resonates. And so when you're talking to your new teammate about what your expectations are for yourself and for them, or what the potential, as you paint, word it this way, as you paint the vision to them, okay, on the possibilities, how do you instill in them that you're going to encourage them to get team right off the bat, and then both of you will encourage their teammates to get team and their teammates to get team? How do you keep that momentum? Tell me that you're magic.
Well, that's the magic. I think I learned the magic from Jeff Roberti by watching him. He's my sponsor. And, he told me in the very beginning, he said, Cheryl, I don't know how to train anybody. He said, you're just going to have to watch me and do whatever I do. So I'm watching him really close. But some of the things he did say right off the bat early on is, he said, you really want to, you always want to present or start with strength. Come from a standpoint of strength always. People follow strength. Now, as I go through the recruiting process and we're talking about, what that person wants for their life, something that I always say in the recruiting process, if there were a picture of your future financially and personally, and this is a big blank wall here, and, what would you put in that picture? What do you really want for yourself, your family, your future? What are you looking for? Okay, so I want to capture that. And as soon as I do, then the most important part of that question in closing is, what are your options to make that happen? Now, first of all, sometimes it takes a little conversation before somebody really gets to the point where they can even express what they want, because they haven't really investigated that. Maybe they have not been able to dream for a long time about what life could be if they could have what that life would look like if they had more financial security. So when we get to the point where we have the picture, and then the options usually are very small, if any, and they haven't thought about that either, then this becomes something that can fill that picture. At that point, once the application is signed and we're going to say, okay, ready, start, go. We do want to talk about in the beginning, if that person really is serious about wanting to fill that picture that we've just described. And then it's come from a standpoint of strength, and Jeff taught me this. The greatest thing I observed is that when people really got off to a good, strong start, fast start, you might say, and they gave them a sense of confidence. It put their business in place so that it, began to get some security right away. And it also did something that was a lesson that I learned in teaching kindergarten, was that if a child met with success early on, if you could set up a situation where they were successful from the very beginning, then their whole school life would most likely be successful because they would see themselves as successful. If they struggled, then that struggle may repeat as time went on because it was the vision of who they were and what they could do. So my goal is to set up expectations so that people can step into what I call self-fulfilling prophecy, which is something we saw in education as well. If a child saw himself as, strong and successful and he was going to do it, and the teacher felt like he was going to do it, he did it. For the most part, that almost always happened. So when I'm starting with a new person, and again, this is coming back to start from a standpoint of strength, I'll start out right away. And I did this even before I knew that I had that I could do it. I mean, Jeff had me saying it right away. And basically what I said is, and what I still say today is, I'm really good at this. I'm good at this, and I can teach you to be good at it too. Together, we can be amazing. And I know exactly what to do every day. And that's my job, is to share that with you. And so then I'm going to outline what the day and the days look like. Is that the most important thing that can happen is we get their questions answered. If they're skeptical and there's not anything you can't ask me from a business standpoint, I make sure that I say that from the very beginning. But I say usually people don't ask me the same thing over and over. They get the question answered and they move on. But I said the most important thing that'll happen here for us to really be a go is that you need to put me in front of as many people as you can find so I can tell the business story to right away. We need to be off to a fast start. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be full-time, pedal to the metal forever, but we want a strong start. And we're going to then, work on your team. We want it to be as wide as possible. And immediately we will work with those people immediately to make sure their team is as wide as possible, and immediately work with those to make sure their team there as wide as possible. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. I'll watch Jeff do that over and over and over. And he is the largest income earner, one of the top 5, I think, worldwide in all the network marketing profession. And it was that pattern but it's coming from that strength of, I know what to do, I'm good at it, and I can teach it to you. And this is what we have to do. So for me, and I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, I think it is great to meet people where they are, as they say, and we're here to support you. All those things are important, but without clear direction, they become rather free-floating without any real meat to it. So for me, and then if the person, we get their questions answered, they're still skeptical, they are not putting me in front of anyone. If they're not putting me in front of anyone, what that means is that they're not ready. Their belief is not strong enough. I'll go back again and, what is it that you need to know for us to be able to do the activity that's going to fill that picture that we described in the beginning. And, if it becomes the same thing over and over, then basically what I'm going to say is, I'll leave the light on for you whenever you're ready. I'm here. But I've got other people who, really want to pursue this at a different level. So you can't, you can run with 100, as they say, but you can't carry one. So there's a sifting process as well. And that sifting process is very important as to where your time goes. I love showing up for people if they're meeting me they're in the middle. If they bring the people, and Jeff told me this early on, Cheryl, you bring the people, I'll bring the presentation. And that's the secret. But we move on it quickly. And we move on it with an energy in the beginning that sets a story that's going to follow that person for the rest of their lives. My story today is exactly the same as the story I told within, that first month or so. There's a much bigger number behind it, but the activity is exactly the same. There is different technology to reach people faster, but the basics are still the same. Nothing has changed. This is the story, this is the product, this is the business. You're interested, we can do this, and we're going to go really wide, and we're going to move quickly in the beginning to set that story so that you have something to create as a model for other people to duplicate. So that's.
And now, Cheryl, it's so exciting to move quickly because you and I didn't get bonuses.
We didn't get bonuses. Yeah, it was a rotary dial phone. I remember being terrified of the fax machine because I couldn't figure out how in the world words got across the country or the world, and in an instant that So there's a lot here today that was not available, but that just means you can move a lot faster with the same basics as you did,
Right.
back. And what I will see, I know, and we're already seeing it. I mean, there are people who, are making much more than I was making when I was that distance down the road, you might say, of time. So people will come in and do what I've done in 30 years. They're going to do it in 10 years. It's just because of the logistics today and the access that we have to people worldwide.
Right, and their reach. How about if I open up everybody, if we can ask you some questions, Cheryl?
Yes, anything you like, go ahead.
I told everybody to please come with questions. So who would like to ask the first question? You just have to kind of just raise your hand and unmute yourself, and I'll call on you. Who's got a question? Susie Smith. We have a lot of Susies on this team, Cheryl. So
I know Susie Smith. There she is.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I couldn't write fast enough. It was awesome. I'm just curious though. You said in the beginning when you decided to make this your full-time career, how much time would you say you put into it to really get it going?
Well, even from initially, I was the first month that I was doing this, I was in between semesters. I taught university at the time. And so I had a whole full month, which was great because we put a lot of things in place very quickly. Jeff stayed with me a couple of weeks, but the first 2 years, it was very serious time. It was a lot harder to reach people. We did things through newspaper ads, which today would probably be the social media of today, filtering through people that we didn't know. I had rounded up everybody I knew. I had a real strong team growing out of just people that I grew up with, went to school with, went to church with, things of that nature, but we were also reaching out in every direction. And I would say that it was definitely a full-time, all-day type of thing at that point. And my goal was to get as many people as possible frontline, to have a strong, wide front line. And by the end of that first year, I also had a really pretty strong business in place, even though I had that first month, which I said really gave me an edge because I got to put, 24 hours a day if necessary. It was a good 12 every day for that month. But we brought a lot of people on right in the beginning. And then, I stayed really close to those people and helping them develop. And so we had a pretty good organization going by the end of that first year when I went full time. Now, we also had the philosophy, and I still have this same philosophy, that, if you can put 2 to 3 years of very consistent effort, you're going to really lay the foundation for your entire future. What we found, though, there is the word consistent. As long as any amount of time consistently goes into it, and this is something that I saw over time, is that for the most part, I mean, there are going to be people who start out and they've got a wide front line growing, and they really, they get that happening right in the beginning. There are other people, though, and the majority, I would say, is this, as far as leadership is concerned, is they don't have that wide front line in the beginning. They might have 2 or 3 team members, but they're constantly in that first year to 2 years, they're adding with, and helping people to add with, and helping people to add with. And I think that really is a secret, that whether you do it straight out of the box, whether you're consistently bringing team on and helping them bring team on, you'll see people pretty much wind up over time in pretty much the same position as far as the size of their organizations because of consistency. So if there's any one thing in there that would really be important, it's consistency over time, whether it's, 30 minutes a day. For me, it was always weaving my business into, in that first year especially, in teaching and, the kids, and trying to keep up with that. And it was hard. I'm not gonna tell you it was a piece of cake. Okay. But I was constantly weaving this into my life. If I went to the florist, I'm telling the florist. If I'm in the grocery store, I'm talking to somebody. And that was in a small town, but it was people that, I knew, and then the people I didn't know as well. So it was weaving it into the day and being consistent with the storytelling that was the most important, I would think. If I answered your question, I'm hoping.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Great question, Susie. Great answer, Cheryl. Thank you. Who's next? Because we only have a few more minutes for Cheryl. She should
have the Monday night call tonight, so I'm going to have to get on that in just a minute.
Melissa.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Melissa is the new rep that did the express track in her first month, Cheryl. She's a QC.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So besides talking to people like everywhere you go, what would you say for a newbie is like the next most important thing?
Well, certainly the story is the most important thing, but I think also is really identifying the people that are coming into your business and where you're going to put your time. Your time is going to be, it's the most valuable commodity you have, because you want to take your time to the best place to get the best return. So I would definitely, be looking at who's really wanting to play, so to speak, and who are they putting you in front of? Is your time, because Jeff used to, when he first started with me, he had me put this little sign on my desk, and it's on the wall in front of my desk, and it says, is this activity making you money now? So if there is, after the story, the most important thing is, are you doing a paying activity? And when people go into business for themselves, and it's the same for all of us, we grow up in a world where they tell you when to go to school, when the weekend is, you get a job, they tell you when to show up, when the weekend is, and now you're here directing your own. And that can be exciting, but can be very overwhelming as well. So there are a lot of activities you could do that would feel like working, but may not be paying activities. So it's really looking carefully at your activities, and is this activity going to result in a customer acquisition or a new team acquisition? Now, it may be me talking to people to bring them on as my frontline team. It may be me talking with someone who's putting me in front of people on my first line, my second line, whatever. But it is definitely, is your activity a paying activity, or is it busy work? If you saw my desk right now, I mean, you only have to look behind me. That's like tenfold on my desk, okay? I'm not one of those people who, I guess I'm a disorganized organization. I always know where everything is, but that's not as important to me as like this right now. I mean, I'm certainly not going to say I have to clean my desk before I'm going to talk to somebody about, our business and how it works, or I'm doing an attraction call or something of that nature. So hopefully that helps.
Great question, Melissa. Great answer, Cheryl. Thank you. Sue Lambier, you want to ask the last question? I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, Cheryl, thank you for giving us your time today. I wanted to ask you, what is your most successful event? Is it three-way calls, especially in the beginning, or is it inviting people to your Monday night call? if you have to create activity with reps, what do you suggest they do as number
For
one?
me, and everybody has, some people, they love events. They really build their business around events. There are other people that, they build it across the kitchen table. But people who, that probably for me, it's the one-on-one. One-on-one where, I'm talking to someone in person. If I've got a new rep or, we say partner who's local, how many people can they bring by my house one at a time for me to sit down with and talk to?
Yeah.
How many people can I get on a three-way call with on Zoom now? We can see each other across the country or the world. So that really is an in-home presentation, but we're just sitting in 3 different locations. So I like that contact of let me talk to the person. Let me hear what their heart wants. Let me look at how I can shape this around that desire. Because it's potential that people buy, not facts. It's what the products are going to do, not what the facts are about fruits, vegetables, and how many you need every day. It's the results. It's the potential of the results. So I want to hear the desire. I want to hear what the heart wants. I want to then say, this is, I'm looking at how I'm going to take what I have and wrap it around those desires. And then if the person's ready to go, I'm the place to start. I know it. I love it. I'm good at it. I can teach it to you. So that would be my best way for me.
Great question too.
And it doesn't mean that you have to be me. I mean, this is what's really important. Now, I realized one day, I'm working with Jeff, and here's Mr. Charisma Dynamo. He is like, he's on fire, and everybody's just, they're getting as close to the flame as they can. And I realized that I could never be Jeff Liberty. I couldn't copy Jeff, but I could work at being the best me. So what I did was I listened to Jeff, and whatever fit, I took it. And then I would go, and I really tried in that first year, 2 years. I wanted to hear every national marketing director. I wanted to hear how they started. I wanted to hear how they thought. I was looking for those transition words that would take me from, telling about the product to shifting into the business. I wanted to hear their closes. I wanted to hear their approaches. So I was collecting what fit me and, creating my own, I guess you would say, professional, not only professional image, but professional activity that fit my values, that fit who I was as a person, that fit how I, liked interacting with people. And so that's the beauty of what we do, is you can draw from so many different people and so many different personalities.
And you know what, Cheryl, I've followed you and emulated you. And I remember when I was a brand new rep, I heard you say it. I'm really good at what I do, and I can teach you to do it. And I remember saying it the first time, feeling not really authentic about it, but it started to come. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said.
Exactly.
And it started to come true. And I was like, oh my God, this works. I'm going to keep saying it.
But I have to identify with that totally, because when I would hear Jeff say that, I said, well, he is good at what he does. And he'd say, just say it. It's going to happen. Okay. So, then it just became a part of you. And this is the thing. I'm one of those people that I feel like, when you do Brene Brown and they make you figure out what your top values are, my number one value is honesty. I can't stand it if something's not honest or not honest with me. And I feel like that's very important for me to live up to my own standards. So I can remember thinking when I started saying that, I'm good at this and I can teach you to be good at it too. I thought, God, I got to get good fast, because I can't be telling these people that I'm good at it if I'm not good at it. So it was a motivator to just learn it as fast as I could, to hear every national marketing director. I drove them crazy at the home office. And of course, the home office was a lot smaller then. About, I wanted to know that marketing plan inside out. I didn't have Jeff there to teach it to me, but Danny Gwaltney, and I think that's why he and I became such close friends in life, was, I'd call Danny every day, and I had a question about this or a question about that. And, I called him one day and I said, what's the close? I don't know what the close is, And so we talked about that. But, this for me had to work. At the time, I didn't see any options. And then the fact that I fell in love with it too, it was such a blessing, because two things came together that were very important in my life, and that I certainly needed the income, we all do, and I needed the path to survival, but I wanted the joy, and the joy showed up as well. So, I think we have a lot to offer people, and we're just very blessed to be the ones that can do it, especially right now. And I've said this many times on a number of calls since this pandemic started, but, there are people that need help in the world all the time, and there are people who come to help. And in this situation, there are a lot of people who need help. They need help with their immune systems. They need help as far as their ability to survive financially, and we're the people who can come to help. So I think right now it's just a matter of, we just have to put aside the fears, the limiting beliefs, the things that hold us back, and we all have them, and say, for right now, I have to have the courage to be the one to show up. Because if I don't show up, I think about if Jeff Roberti had taken the day off, or not felt like, doing this the day he found me, my whole life would have been different, and I don't think it would have been pretty. So, because of his persistence, as far as his striving for his own excellence, he opened the door for so many people. So that's what we are. We are the people who are there to open the door. And I think it's important that we live up to that. So I guess at this point, I need to go on and get on the next call.
You have to get on your call, but thank you so much, Cheryl.
You're
This
so
is so
welcome.
inspirational.
I enjoyed it. And anytime,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm right here at this computer.
so
I'm on
much,
the
Cheryl.
call now because my spine is compressed so much from sitting here. Okay, but anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheryl,
sweetie.
it's
We're
been
going
a
to jump
joy.
on your call right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hamilton's on the phone saying thank you.
That's good. I'm glad that was
Poor
good.
Ham.
It's recorded, Donna, so tell him it was great he could hear it.
Recorded him.
Let me select the
Yeah, good.